Hello guys, and welcome to another Love or Hate. We're on episode 3 of this series already, man. Like, we are flying through this. Now, quickly, just to let you guys know, you're going to notice a watermark in the top left corner. This is because the footage I am using in this video is not my footage. Let me make that very clear. It's not my footage. It's done by a channel called PB Horror Gaming. Go and check them out. The link is in the description down below. The reason I've done this is because I played the game through on 360 and I have no way of screen capturing footage or anything off my 360. I can only do it on my Xbox One and my PS4, and sadly Fear and the entire series is not a game that's backwards compatible, unfortunately. I wanted to make that very clear at the beginning of this because it's not my footage. Again, their links are down below. Thank you again. Very much appreciative just using it. I know that's terrible, I'm really sorry, but that's why I'm crediting them now for the first minute of the video. Remember, click the link down below if you want to see the full unedited video. It's a long play, it's really good, and they've done an amazing job with it. So, Fear is First Encounter Assault Recon is a horror first-person shooter video game developed by Monolith Productions and published by Vivendi Universal Games and Warner Brothers Games. It was released on October 17th, 2005 for Microsoft Windows, and it was ported by Day One Studios to the Xbox 360 and PS3. Now, I originally played this game way back when it first came out, around that time, on 360, and I gotta be honest, guys, I love the game. I absolutely love these games. I even loved the third game. People hated the third game, but I loved it. I loved the co-op aspect to it and everything, but obviously we'll talk about that when we get to it. Now, also, just to throw this out there, I am doing the Fear Files. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's basically the expansion packs, excuse me, for the first game. So that's obviously Extraction Point and I believe it's Persuas Mandate. They are two expansion packs that are basically their own storylines. The Extraction Point was made in 2006 and Perseus Man was made in 2007, but we'll obviously talk about them in their own deserving videos. But yes, guys, I've got to be honest, the Fear series is like one of the first horror games that I had ever played. In fact, it was the first horror game that I ever played, and it really got me into horror. Like, I completely fell in love with the genre after playing this game. It was a massive staple to me in my life. It really made me love horror games. It loved me making, I loved playing, first-person shooters. After, playing this game, it was just something that really made me love gaming more. And, and still to this day, even over a decade onwards, 13 years old this game is, in my expectations, it's still held up as an incredibly good game. And I'm going to list a couple of reasons why, but first I'm going to get into the negatives. So the negatives that I want to talk about, in the first thing we're going to start with is gameplay. Now again, there's not too much that I can complain about, but obviously the gameplay has not aged well. The control scheme for the game, obviously if you're playing it on PC, I assume that you'll have like much more freedom and control on how to change keys, what they do. Unfortunately, when it comes to console gamers, you ain't going to have any choice, and it's very strange. The control scheme to it is very awkward, it's very old-fashioned, and it can take a little bit of time to get used to it, but once you're used to it, it's okay. But it is a bit of an adjustment period, as it's not really like anything you're gonna play. So yeah, that kind of threw me off a little bit. I completely forgot about that. The second thing I want to talk about that I didn't like about the game was in the story aspect. Now, I love the story of Fear. I'm not saying I don't like the story. What I'm saying is you really have to focus. If you want to learn everything about the game without looking it up, you just want to play the game, that's how you want to learn the story. It's very detailed. You have to pay attention all the time. Now, it could just be a case that I'm stupid and I'm not paying enough attention, but I struggle, even to this day, to focus on the storyline. I find it very difficult to understand what's going on, the reasons for it, the enemies, stuff like that, and it's crucial that you pay attention to every tiny detail. And unfortunately, I find that to be quite struggling because I'm not the smartest match in the box. So, it's not the greatest, but I'm not saying it's a bad completely bad thing. I think it's just they've overcomplicated it in some sense, and there's a lot of exploration you have to do if you want to learn the full picture of the story. The next thing that I want to talk about that I don't like, well, I wouldn't say I hate the stuff about it, but it's definitely a negative on the game, is graphics. Now the game, for the fact that it came out in 2005, bear in mind this was the year that we had the first Condemned game, Call of Duty 2, Lego Star Wars, Devil May Cry 3, Call of Cthulhu, Need for Speed, Fantastic Four, Battlefield 2, The Incredibles, James Bond from Russia with Love, King Kong, and many other great and bad games from that time. The game doesn't look too awful. It could look a hell of a lot worse, to be honest with you. Again, like, just to stress this point, the game is 13 years old. It still looks pretty good, and I'm assuming if you play it on a PC port now, you'll probably have 60 frames a second, the game will probably run really well, and it will look gorgeous. I am absolutely positive of that. But obviously when you're playing it on consoles, this is coming from an oh god, silly me, an Xbox 360 player. Obviously the game doesn't look the greatest, and it's not so much that I give a shit about graphics, it's just I'm kind of just giving it to you guys how I see it. You know, the graphics in the game aren't exactly top quality notch. They are not the most extremely amazing graphics you're ever going to see in a game, but if you haven't got a problem with that, then hell yeah, I'd say go for it. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is the enemies. Now, the enemy design in this is really good, but we'll get onto that later. But there are a couple of enemies that kind of frustrated me a little while I was playing through the game. Now, one of the main enemies that you kind of encounter later into the game is kind of like a robot. I don't know how I would explain it. It's like a drone, and it can basically shoot lasers at you, whatever. You know, it's kind of cool, whatever. It's a nice little design they have, but they can be incredibly frustrating at times in the sense that their hitboxes are so small and inconsistent that it's kind of difficult sometimes to gauge whether or not you're hitting them, unless you do the slow down bullet time that you can do in this game. You're gonna struggle with these assholes, and they are assholes. They are proper assholes. I hate them. They are something that I genuinely hate in the game, but not so much that I could genuinely be like, hey, I despise this game because of it. Alright, so with the bad stuff out of the way really quickly, because again, there is not that much that's bad with this game. I love the majority of this game. So we're going to get into the stuff that I love, because this is the part I really do enjoy doing this about games. So, the first thing I want to talk about is the opening sequence of the game. Now, obviously, I haven't got any footage of that in the gameplay that you guys are watching, but I love the opening sequence for this game. It is so incredible how they mixed gameplay with the actual kind of title card to show you who's obviously in the game and stuff like that. Now, obviously, in this day and age, in 2018, that's not really a big feat. It's not difficult. A lot of developers do it now. It's actually pretty much a guaranteed thing you're going to get in the game. But back then, in 2005, that was very difficult to do. But they did it with such finesse. It looks awesome. The game opens up and it just really drags you in, and it is absolutely awesome, and I completely fell in love with the opening. The moment you see the opening, it's just, gave me goosebumps, because it's been years, by the way, since I've played this game, and I was just like, hey, I'm going to play through it again and review it. Jesus Christ, I forgot how much I love it, man. It is incredible. So next thing we're going to talk about is the gameplay, and it is fun and enjoyable. It's awesome to see all the blood particles and gore in the game as well. Like, that's something you're going to really notice when you're shooting enemies and you're taking limbs off them. You're blowing like them in half. You know, they are literally exploding into a cloud of red particles. It's amazing. And back then, again, this is something that wasn't very sort of used to doing. Like, this was a completely new concept back then in some sense, because you had obviously had games like Soldier of Fortune and things like that really pushed the blood and gore of like war and fighting in games, but this was on a console. This was basically unheard of at that point. You know, it was difficult to find a game that would allow you to cause such mayhem but run pretty well and not have really any stability issues, any bugs, nothing like that. Like, it was fucking awesome. The game plays like any normal FPS. It obviously plays well, may I add, considering the time that it came out. Although, sadly, it hasn't aged well. We'll say that much, but we won't say any more. So yeah, there was one bug that I actually forgot to mention to you guys in the gameplay, which I'll mention quickly now. I wouldn't say that I hate the fact, like, there's so many game-breaking bugs or anything. This was the only bug that I came across. Bear in mind, the game took me about 8 to 9 hours to finish, because I was looking in every nook and cranny to find absolutely everything. But essentially, I came across one part, I think it was about interval 8. By the way, intervals are chapters essentially in this game. Basically, there was a guy, one of the enemy soldiers had spawned in like underneath the map, and through that entire level he was shooting me continuously, and I couldn't kill him because I couldn't see him, but he could shoot through every single wall. Now, after reloading the game about 6 or 7 times, it finally stopped. I'm guessing it must have despawned him or something, but that was basically the only glitch or bug that I came through the entire game, which wasn't that bad. A bit frustrating at the time, of course, but definitely not that bad considering the fact that it stopped pretty quickly after that reset. So, I mean, I can't really judge it for that. Again, the game is old, so, I mean, you know, and I'm running it off the actual hardware that, you know, it first came out on, or didn't first come out on, but that it came out on back in 2005. So, the next thing I want to talk about is the story. Now, I adore the story in this game. The story in this game is absolutely outstanding. If you put the time and effort into finding all like the collectible phones or the collectible laptops, you will learn so much about this story. Now, obviously, I'm not going to give anything away in this review because I don't want you guys to spoil it for you guys. You guys need to go off and play this game for yourself. If you've never played this game, you are doing yourself a disservice. This game is one of those games that you need to experience. You could watch a walkthrough for it and you'd get the gist of it, but when you play the actual game, like the jump scares and stuff like that, it is incredible. It really sucks you in. The story is really enjoyable, though it takes some thought and paying attention at times to follow really what is going on. The game, however, never lets you forget you are, of course, dealing with something extra supernatural and powerful, which is implemented very well. The ending is very clever in the sense of setting up the next game. Now, I agree with the point that, so basically what I'm reading here, guys, is little notes that I've jotted down from before while I'm playing the actual game. The reason I do this is because I'm not very good when it comes to ad-libbing. Like, I don't have a script for these reviews, so I am essentially saying stuff off the cuff, but I like to have little notes just to kind of remind myself so I have an idea of what to talk to. But yeah, I do agree with what I said. The ending is incredibly clever, and I think you guys will really, really enjoy the ending if you do ever actually play the game. But yeah, the game is very good, even though you have to really focus with the story. It's very clever about never letting you forget that it is a horror game. You'll have like about an hour or two segment of basically no horror, but then suddenly all this horror stuff gets thrown at you, and it's very, very well implemented to the point of where you would actually struggle to forget that you're in a horror game, because there's such subtle little things that happen here and there, and then suddenly you'll get like a massive load of horror in one big go for like an hour, and it always throws these little hints at you, but without giving too much away, and that keeps you on your toes 24/7. It's really, really good game design and story design, and I have to commend Fear for doing it. Like, they did an absolutely excellent job with it. So, the next thing I want to talk about is the graphics. Now, as I've said in my previous reviews, obviously this is episode 3, go and check out the last 2 episodes. I might leave a link down in the description. But yeah, the graphics are obviously dated. When it comes to the console, they are dated graphics. However, I'm a sucker for old graphics. I like the way it looks. I like the blood particles. I like how the blood splatters over the wall, on the floors. It's a very gruesome game, and it looks awesome. To me at least anyway, it looks incredible. And of course, visually, they look a bit dated, and they don't look incredibly good. It looks blocky at times. It can look very blurry, but to me it's got that charm to it. Again, bear in mind this game is 13 years old, and I'm going to keep saying it because it is an incredibly good game that still stands up the test of time and can stand up to some of the new games that have come out recently, you know, in horror game wise. you've got like games that have come out recently in the horror genre that don't even come close to how good and how well made Fear is. And it's such a shame about that fact, but I don't hate it. It's pretty good, and you know, it's awesome. So I'm just gonna read my quick notes on the graphics, and I'll let you guys know if I agree with what I said before. The graphics are visually dated, but for a game that came out so long ago, look decent enough. The environment is fairly destructible as well, which was basically unheard of at the time of the game's release, and the destruction left behind after shooting a wall or person actually looks really good. Now, yeah, that's something I didn't touch on, is the destructibility of the environments. Now, you can literally shoot walls or pillars and stuff, and chunks will come out of it. Bullet holes genuinely look like they do damage, and it works so well. I can't put it into words how well it works and how incredibly good it is. It's difficult to put into words. You need to go and play the game yourself to really feel that environment when you're in it. You've got headphones on, you're playing the game for like an hour or two, and you're really getting into it, and suddenly 6 hours has passed and you've nearly done the game. Like, it is just one of those games. You really get sucked in and immersed into it. The level design is simple but effective, allowing the player to walk around and explore little sections to get upgrades for health and the bullet time. So as I mentioned before, there is a bullet time feature. You can slow down time while you're shooting enemies and stuff, and it really comes in handy when you are fighting the later enemies, because the later enemies can be quite difficult. Now, when you're going around and you go into like these different areas, the game is not open world. It's not even semi-open world, of course. It is very linear. It's one-hitted path, but you do have little rooms and secret areas you can go off to and find, and they have either health boosters, which you can find. There's quite a few of them around, but once you pick one up, you get about 5 extra health points every time you pick one up. You also have like, for the bullet time, you can pick up little syringes as well, which will increase the amount of time you can go into bullet time. It's incredibly useful to get those, because later on they're pretty much necessary if you want to get past the really difficult enemies. They are very handy to have. Now, there is achievements and trophies, if you guys didn't know, for the PS3s and the Xbox players. If you don't pick up any of these, you do get achievements and trophies for that, so bear that in mind if you are interested in doing them. But yeah, the level design is actually very simplistic, but it works incredibly well. That is something I definitely agree with what I said. Now, the atmosphere, I don't even need to look at my notes for this. The atmosphere is spot on. It is incredible how, when you're walking through like these narrow corridors of like an office building, for instance, and then all of a sudden you're transported into this hospital area, without giving anything away, obviously, for you guys who want to play the game. You're transported to like this hospital area. It's not obviously an actual hospital area. It's obviously like kind of a daydream sequence kind of thing, and it's incredible. It's so scary because you've got these little subtle hints. So you'll have, like, you'll be walking down a corridor or something, you'll just see the main protagonist just suddenly appear from nowhere and walk out and then just fade into dust away. It is really, really good. The atmosphere for the horror in this game is what makes this game stand out to any horror game that I've ever played in the past. So the atmosphere, the game constantly reminds you that you're in a horror game with scary shadows moving all the time and having people whispering in your ear. Now, that's another thing. The sound design in this game, I can't even put it into words. It's just perfect. The sound design in this game is so spot on that you would believe, if you're, especially when you're wearing headphones. One thing I noticed, if any of you guys have actually played Hellblade, which came out I think a year or two ago, when you wear headphones for that game, my god, it is terrifying hearing all those voices and stuff. That's basically what feels like. Occasionally you'll hear like a whisper in your back right ear or something. If you're wearing headphones, you'll hear it more prominently, and it really affects you, and it makes you feel like you're actually being talked to. The sound design in this game was just outstanding. It really did peak above anything else, and that includes Condemned, which is another one of my favourite games that I played in the past, and it just it manages to pull off this thing that you just don't think it could do, because it was such a unusual time to be doing this kind of stuff back in 2005, and yet they pulled it off. And they didn't just pull it off, they pulled it off to an extent of, you can play the game 10 years later and it's still absolutely terrifying and amazing. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the gunplay. So the gunplay The gunplay, sorry, can be a bit clunky at times. I can also feel a little slow and dated, which is a shame to say the least. Definitely the least enjoyable part of the game for me. This is helped out by the blood and gore, though. So yeah, I must admit I do agree with what I've said there. The gunplay does feel very dated. Obviously, not being able to aim down iron sights is very old-fashioned, and it can have that charm to it, that nostalgia kind of charm and feel to it. But I would definitely say that the gunplay in this game is the weakest aspect. Unfortunately, you are doing a lot of gunplay in this game, of course, for it being an FPS horror, you know. But what I would advise, if you are doing when you are doing the gunplay parts in this game, one thing I found that helped was taking my time. You've got a lean feature which you can use to go around corners and stuff. Use that feature consistently and you'll have a lot more fun with the gunplay then. There are a lot of incredibly fun weapons though in this game. I cannot fault this game for its weapon design. It is absolutely outstanding. You've got this plasma gun that when you shoot people they turn into skeletons. You've got the typical shotguns, machine guns, pistols, dual submachine guns. The guns feel really good in this game. Like when you're shooting a shotgun at someone they explode into like a ball of red blood that goes everywhere. There is nothing more satisfying than running into a room and killing 6 or 7 enemies in bullet time mode with a shotgun. I am telling you, the game has nailed that, and still to this day it is still satisfying and fun to do. However, in moments where that's not happening, where you can't get close enough to do that kind of thing, so you're having to sort of stay back, use your submachine guns, use your pistols, use the plasma guns, anything like that, it can feel a bit clunky and it can feel very dated and difficult, especially with the zoom function. The zoom function is not that effective, I found, for myself at least anyway. Other people may disagree, but I did find that the gunplay was definitely the weakest element in this game. Not terrible by any stretch of the means, but definitely not refined. I believe that the gunplay did get better as the series went on, of course, but definitely the weakest thing in this game at this point in time anyway. The next thing we're going to talk about, and the final thing before I tell you whether I love or hate the game, is the enemies. Now the enemies in this game are kind of boring. They can get very boring and kind of uninteresting, but that is helped out by the different weapon varieties. So the kind of enemies that you'll get in this game, of course, are human-wise, you get kind of like army kind of dudes. Don't want to give too much away, so you get like kind of the normal sort of trooper who has like machine guns and stuff, and they can die really quickly. You've got like armored guys, which, you know, take a lot more. They're kind of like bullet sponges at some points, which can be a bit frustrating, but is very rewarding when you do get to kill them. You do have to fight kind of mech robots occasionally, which can shoot rockets at you. That can be a pain in the ass, but luckily fighting them in the bullet time is a lot of fun, especially if you're using like a rocket launcher to take them on. Just watching the rockets go in slow motion back and forth and hitting walls and exploding stuff and glass shattering everywhere, it just looks incredible, and it is a lot of fun to do that. One of the best enemy types is way later on in the game. You're kind of fighting what I would call demons. They sort of come at you and you have to shoot them, and they come out of like portals and stuff. It is very cool. Obviously, again, I don't want to give too much away, but I mean, they are very, very fun enemies. Obviously, as I said at the beginning of the video as well, of course, you have those kind of drone enemies, and they can be a bit frustrating to fight. But they're not too difficult to kill. It's just trying to get into their hitbox. You've got to try and it's quite difficult. It can be a very frustrating experience the first time you fight them, but after the first time you can kind of get used to them and gauge where to shoot and that kind of thing. So it works out in the end, but it just takes a little bit of time to build up to. But yeah, overall I would say the enemies are fun to fight the majority of the time, 90% of the time, but that 10% when they're not is kind of when you're more so in open-ended areas, and that can be a little bit frustrating at times. So the final thing that I do want to talk about is the ending. Now, obviously, as I said before, the game does a very good job in the end, kind of setting up for the sequel, and I agree. I think that the game really does work incredibly well at setting up for the next game. Obviously, I won't be doing Fear 2 yet. I'm obviously doing the expansion packs for Fear number 1, which is the Fear files. They are basically 2 separate Fear kind of campaigns that are done with 2 different units. I will be playing through both of them and doing a review for both of those games separately, so I can really focus on each game. I can't imagine the gameplay and stuff being extremely different. Obviously, as they came out pretty much around not too long after the first game. One of them obviously came out the next year, and then the following year the next one came out properly. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing them. But yeah, overall, I would say, of course, I love the Fear games. And I will be completely honest now. Probably every Fear game that I review is going to be a love, regardless of whether it has bad elements to it or not. I love all of the Fear games. I have so many good memories of Fear 3 as well, playing it with my best friend back from school. Or one of my best friends from school. I used to go up to his house, we used to play Fear 3 together, do the survival mode that was in it. There's a lot of good memories involved with these games, and for me they are something incredibly special that I do very much love. So yes, I do love the first Fear game, and yes, I highly recommend you go out there and get it. You can get it dirt cheap now, and even online you can just get an emulator for it and play it on your PC. I would recommend playing it on the PC. I had a lot of problems when I was playing it on the 360. There was a lot of jittering, there was a lot of problems, and obviously, you know, not only is the console old, but the game is old as well. So obviously the hardware doesn't live up to how it used to be. So playing it on a console would definitely do it a disservice. I highly recommend you go and play it on PC. It will run better, it will look better, and it will play much better. So yeah, I love the game. Go off and play it for yourselves. Enjoy. It is one hell of an experience. Okay, so again, just to end this off, remember guys, the footage you have seen in this video is not mine. It belongs to the YouTube channel PB Horror Gaming. There is a link on the top line of the description. Please click that and go and check out the full video on their channel. It's also, please go over and subscribe to them. I have used their footage without talking to them. This is why I am stressing that it is not my footage. Now obviously I don't monetize my videos. I have cut the video up significantly, and obviously I have continuously talked over the footage as well. So it clearly is not copyrighted, but I just want to make sure that you guys understand you need to go and check them out. It is a very good video. I have watched it in its entirety and it is awesome. So I highly recommend you go and watch that. And yeah. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. Remember, if you have any games you want me to review and check out, let me know down in those comments below. Don't forget to click on that link in the top line of the description to go and check out the full actual video from PB Horror Gaming. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I will catch you in the next Love or Hate episode that we do, which will most likely be the Fear Files. So if you're looking forward to that, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel as well. So thank you guys again for watching. I love you very much, and I will catch you in the next video that I do. Goodbye for now.
I'd pretty much given up on being rescued.